Sabrina Frey, welcome to my YouTube channel. I am delighted to have you here. I love your work. I'm so impressed by it. You've been doing it quite a while, and you live in the Lake Tahoe area, right, of Nevada, in Minden, Nevada. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Thank you, Valerie, for having me on here. I appreciate the opportunity to share my bead mosaics, and I'm glad that you had the opportunity to see them in person, because that always makes a difference. And yeah, I live near South Lake Tahoe, in Nevada, and I have been working with the beads for about 12 years and started doing this professionally about 5 years ago.
Okay, great. So I have looked at your website, and this is the piece that caught my eyes some months ago when I first invited you to appear on my channel. I can't get over this piece. It's just a detail, just a detail. And this piece is called Butterfly Explosion. It's 100% beads. And in the next image here, it's quite a large piece. Here you are holding it up. How did
Yeah.
you come to think of making this piece, or what drives you making your pieces in general?
So this particular piece was one of my first really big challenges. I had been working with the beads for about 5 years, kind of just keeping it small and not really pushing myself. And then I had a notebook that I had done a small kind of butterfly explosion. I only had four butterflies on it. And I really liked the way it turned out. And I said, okay, I want to go big. I want to do a lot of different butterflies. I would just want an explosion of butterflies everywhere. And so I started researching, and this piece was 24 by 40. And it took me about, I would say, almost 6 months to complete, because at the time I wasn't as sure of myself, so my work went a little bit slower. I was incredibly just every attention to every little detail, and I really let every single butterfly be its own piece of art. So I didn't rush it, and I wanted to enjoy the process and the whole experience, and challenge myself to go large and really kind of push the limits of what I was doing at the time.
I think it's magnificent. And did I read somewhere that it has a couple of 100,000 beads in it? Is that
Oh,
correct?
yes. Yes, it does. Yeah, and most of those beads on this piece were placed one at a time. So there was definitely a lot of tweezer work in it.
Okay.
And I'm glad that it is now, Fire Mountain has it in their lobby. They purchased
Oh,
it and put it in their lobby.
okay.
So
You
I'm
mean,
grateful that its permanent home is in a place where people can appreciate it every
oh yeah,
day.
you mean Fire Mountain Gems and somewhere
Yes.
in near Seattle, is it near Seattle?
They're Grants Pass, Oregon.
Oregon. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so for people who don't know, they're a very large jewelry supply warehouse and bead supply warehouse company,
Yes.
a long time in the field, very well established, well respected. So wow, congratulations that it's in
Thank
their
you.
possession now. Great job.
Thank you.
I love this piece. Anyway, I just want to talk a little bit about your background. You are qualified in interior design. You got your Bachelor of Fine Arts magna cum laude in Chicago here at the International Academy of Design and Technology. That's back in 2002. In 2012, you got your MFA, again, magna cum laude, in interior design at Florida State University. And then you started teaching. You became a professor, an assistant professor of interior architecture, University of North Carolina in Greensboro. And at about that same time, you started becoming the artist you are now today, a full-time professional bead mosaic artist.
Mhm.
You've done more than 40, I counted, more than 40 juried national art shows all over the country. So you have enormous experience. You've won many awards, too many to count, actually. And here's an example of what your booth looks like, your show booth looks like with your pieces in it. Here you are in your booth with your cousin Sandra.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks like it's kind of a chilly day. You have pieces of all different sizes. What's it like to do a show with your pieces?
I love it because I get to visit my work every time I do a show. So it gives me days to enjoy seeing it again in a different setting. I love watching people and the interaction they have with it. Just seeing how they the joy of them being able to touch the art. I encourage a lot of interaction and I love seeing that and so it's just as much pleasure for me as it is for them to be able to interact with it. And I also because I travel all over the country, I get to visit a lot of family and friends. And that always makes it a lot more fun. And a lot of clients have become friends and other artists in the area. So it's been a pretty incredible journey doing art shows. It's a different world, but it's a good one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did it myself for a long time. And as I mentioned before, you've won many awards. Here's just one example. This year, 2024, you won Best of Show at the Utah Arts Festival in Salt Lake City. That must have been a good feeling.
It was such a surprise. It's always a surprise when someone chooses you for an honor like that. But yeah, it's a good feeling, and it's nice knowing that all the work we put into it at some point does pay off, and people notice it, and all the little details you put into setting up a professional booth and taking care of people and just representing the whole industry. I think it's an honor because you do your best to represent it well. So
Yeah, and you definitely do. And here another award this year at the Glasscraft and Bead Expo in Las Vegas. Did I get that right?
yes, yes, that was quite an honor. I had never participated in the Bead Expo, the Glasscraft and Bead Expo, so it was my first year there, and I won People's Choice as well as Best of Show. So that was quite an honor. My Eagle Spark is he's won quite a few awards. He's a pretty neat piece. And so that was really something. They were incredibly welcoming. I kind of don't fit into a lot of categories as a bead artist. I'm not a painter, so sometimes it's kind of hard to fit me in there, but I'm also not a jeweler and I don't make my beads. I buy them pre-made. So I always kind of wonder where I fit in, but everybody has been so welcoming and it was really nice to be accepted the way I was there.
Well, I'd say you fit in the category called mixed media. And most shows, well, most, juried American craft and art and craft shows have a category called mixed media. And that's where I would place you. And we're going to see Spark, the bald eagle, the famous bald eagle, a little bit later on in our presentation. And you're a teacher too. You're an educator. Here you are with a student at a bead mosaic retreat in Fraser, Colorado this year. And you seem to be enjoying it a great deal, and the student is hard at work. Do you like
I love teaching, and I got my MFA so that I could teach specifically, and I taught for 10 years prior to getting that as well. And so when I left teaching to become a professional artist, I was sad at the prospect of not teaching anymore. But my classroom has grown and expanded beyond Greensboro, and now I get to teach people all over the world, and I do workshops and retreats with people, and I love seeing their sense of accomplishment and discovery when I can teach them my techniques and they see how easy it really can be and how much versatility there is with the beads and that there aren't the limitations that people think there are. And so it gives me a lot of joy to see what they do with what I can give them as far as knowledge goes.
Got it. And you do offer some kits on your website, and I noticed you also have a YouTube channel where you do have some tutorials, right?
Mhm.
And
Yes,
we'll,
I started the YouTube channel years ago because I had gotten so many questions from people about how I do my mosaics. There was a lot of curiosity behind it. And so I started sharing, my techniques and stuff with people. So the YouTube channel, there's over 70 tutorials on there now. Just teaching whatever I learn, I try to pass on so somebody else can benefit. And I do workshops all over. I teach them at events like the Glass Craft and Bead Expo. I'll be teaching them at the Tucson Bead and Gem Show this coming year. And I also do retreats and private workshops with people as well. So I don't get to teach as often as I would like, and that's kind of where the kits come in, because I don't have the time with my travel schedule to be able to teach a lot of workshops. So the kits give people the opportunity to learn it with the video so that they can learn the techniques on their own and then kind of go off on their own and do their own designs and things. So the kits have been very popular, and then we also sell the supplies for them to be able to do their own designs and work as well.
Okay. And so your kits are sold, and the supplies you mentioned are sold on your website, sabrinafryart.com. Am I getting that right?
Actually, the Sabrina Frey art website is for my original artwork only. We
Okay.
have a website called beadmosaic.com that is strictly for the do-it-yourselfer and the people that want to learn and do more with it. So that happened about a year and a half ago. We are now kind of two separate businesses because they're both growing very well. So we kind of had to split it off. But yeah, they can link to both websites from either one. They
Okay.
can find them on either place. Yeah.
Great. Great. So the mosaic for the kits and the supplies is beadmosaic.com.
Yes.
Okay, great. And here you are teaching on TV, on Jewel TV. What was that experience like?
That was really interesting. I met Jewel TV when I was in Tucson last year, and they were very, very interested in the kits and being able to teach people how to do more with their beads. And I haven't had cable TV for about 25 years, so I didn't even know Jewel TV was a thing. So it was wonderful that I went to Tennessee to their studios and did a kit kind of on the fly. They asked me to design exclusive kits for them to carry on their channels. So I did that. And as a matter of fact, I will be on there tomorrow morning at, 7 a.m. my time, but I'll be doing another teaching experience with them. So it was fascinating to see the back end of a television studio and the amount of work that goes into it and how incredibly talented the people are that host those shows, because they're keeping track of a lot of stuff. I was like, this TV stuff is way harder than it looks. We always think they have an easy job, but no. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun and they were wonderful to work with.
Great, great, great. And then I want to just show a little bit of your personal life, your family background, and you've been very generous in sharing these images with me. You know, not everyone is comfortable sharing images from their personal life, but you are, and I really appreciate it. I know our viewers will really appreciate it. Here you are with your family at left, and I'm celebrating your mom's 80th birthday or your husband's mom's 80th birthday.
My mother's 80th birthday.
Your
Yeah.
mother's 80th birthday. Okay, which was this year, I take it, or recently?
Yes. Yes, it was this June. And I was fortunate enough, she lives in Florida, that we were able to go down and kind of have a little family reunion, get everybody together to celebrate with her. So this picture is my husband and I with my brother and my stepfather and my mom with her birthday cake. And it was actually her first birthday party ever that she's ever had. So it was really fun to be able to do that. And then the other picture is my husband and I, our youngest son Garrett is next to me, and then my dad and his wife are next to him. And then my husband's the one holding the first pom pom. His name's Butters. he's my grand dog, I guess, and my future daughter-in-law Ashley and my son CJ in the picture with us. So this is kind of almost pretty much my whole family in two pictures from one
That's
coast to the
great.
other.
That's wonderful. So the tall young man in the back standing right next to you is who's that?
That's my youngest son, Garrett, and he's in the Air Force right now. He's a crew chief in the Air Force, and we're
Wow.
super proud of him. And then the one taking the picture on the farthest end is my oldest son, CJ.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Great.
and he actually helps with my business. He and my husband, Chris, both work with beadmosaic.com in helping supply the kits, create the kits, manage the kits, that kind of stuff.
Great. Okay. Wonderful. A
Yeah,
beautiful family.
thank you.
And here you are again with CJ and your future daughter-in-law, Ashley, having
Yeah.
Japanese food,
So,
it looks like.
yes, we're big sushi lovers. So we love to go out for sushi and CJ and Ashley are getting married next July, so we're super excited and welcoming her to the family. She's an incredible addition. I really love her and um, we're all excited to have the
Ex-
family grow.
Excellent. You look happy. You're all smiling. You look very happy.
Yeah.
And you're an outdoors woman. And
Mhm.
this theme is important because it turns up in your work. As we'll see, so many of your subjects relate to the outdoors in one way or another. And how is it that you're so drawn to the outdoors?
Well, I grew up in the mountains in Colorado. So I grew up in Evergreen and my family, we were campers and hikers from forever. I grew up skiing from little. I learned how to snowboard as soon as it became a thing. Um, and we always traveled. It was, summers were spent in the back of the truck, going four-wheeling, heading all over the West and just exploring our world. And so nature is a huge source of it's my energy source, it's my joy, it's my relaxation, kind of anything. So and I love to travel. And my husband and I travel all over. We raised our kids on the road, with them. Let's go somewhere, and we would take off for the weekend and just discover new places and we've lived all over the country as well, so that kind of helps fuel that and we like to travel overseas as well as domestically. And so I love the natural world. It feels right. It's um it's ever changing and it's colorful and inspiring, and so yeah, it definitely plays a big part in my work.
And these landscapes are so majestic, and there's so much space here, so much wide open space and soft colors and a feeling for the foreground, with human beings, and then the background, the long, long distance views here. So compelling and beautiful. I see it in your work too, which we'll look at coming up. And as I think we mentioned, you live near Lake Tahoe, near the southern area, the southern
Mhm.
border of Lake Tahoe. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
And so you spend a fair amount of time at the lake or on the lake, right?
I do. My husband's an avid boater, and when we moved west, one of his biggest things about choosing a place to live was that there was enough water that he wouldn't get sick of it in a week. And so Lake Tahoe was our choice, and I got my mountains, which was the biggest part for me. He got his water. And so, yeah, we enjoy going out on the lake every chance we get. We travel a lot, so it's kind of infrequent, but yeah, and our dogs love the lake, especially my black lab. Her name's Ash. She is a complete water dog. As soon as we get on the lake, she's jumping in the water nonstop and enjoying herself. And so yeah, we try to go out and enjoy the lake as much as possible.
Okay. And when I saw this photo of you in this t-shirt, and having talked to you a little bit in the past, not a great deal, my sense of you is that you're an optimist and you see the glass as always being half full rather than half empty. And have I got that right?
Very much so. I am very much a positive person. I always try to see the positive and the good in things, and no matter the situation, try to pull the good out of it. I love people. I love what I do. I always have. When I was doing architecture, I loved it. When I was teaching, I loved it. And then now that I get to do other things, I'm always, trying to find the joy and focusing on that. So yeah, this Bucky's t-shirt was a good find for me. Worked perfectly.
That looks great on you. Yeah, and
Thank you.
the optimism, the joy comes through in your work, which we're going to see in a second. So we're going to talk about five different categories of your subject matters, the motifs that you like to incorporate into your work: flowers, trees, landscapes, animals, and birds. I think there are probably more, but these are the ones we're going to focus on because it seems to me these are the recurring themes in your work. And of course, they all relate to nature, to the outdoors, to what we've been given as human beings on this earth.
Yes.
We'll start with flowers. Here's a piece called Beth's Bloom. Can you tell me about this piece?
So this was a commission piece. The North Ridge Country Club in Raleigh, North Carolina, commissioned me to create this piece. I had done several art shows for them, and their only thing was it has to be a red flower. And the I have a friend who had passed away, but her name was Beth, and her favorite flower was the hibiscus. She loved living in Florida, and so I thought that appropriately I would name it Beth's Bloom because the flower was her favorite. But it was a wonderful challenge because this piece is actually a 3D piece. So the purple area that bleeds into the red actually raises up off the canvas and then lays flat. So the beads are raised up, the all the petals raise up and then lay flat. So it was a really neat challenge. It was also a challenge because of the size. This is a 32 by 32 piece, so it's a decently large piece. And yeah, it was a fun challenge. I really enjoyed it.
And what a beautiful tribute to the friend you lost. And I'm sorry you lost her. It sounds like you guys were pretty close.
Yeah, yeah, we were. She was like a big sister to me, and yeah, lost her too soon, but um, did what I could to give her some due.
Yeah, to honor her for sure. And I love the way how you've mixed all these colors in this bead mosaic, how the pine greens have little specks of white, and how the reds, all the different shades of red, the tonalities have specks of white. And I think even the purplish, bluish or purplish tones have specks of white. And that's a unifying theme, these specks of white. And when I first saw this piece, I thought of Georgia O'Keeffe and her intense close-up details of flowers and how she abstracts them, and that's kind of what you're doing here. I wonder, was Georgia O'Keeffe on your mind at all?
No, not really. My goal was just make this hibiscus flower as large as possible, and get as much detail in it as I can. And actually, the white specks that you're talking about are actually the reflection of the light on the glass. So the beads, the way that I create bead mosaics is different than most in that I allow the beads to face whatever direction they want. So they're not all lined up, and they're not all straight and facing the same way. So they have an incredible reflective value. And so this picture is one of the ones that really captured that reflection on the glass. And that's what all those white specks are, is the reflection on the beads themselves.
I see. So they're lights, they're highlights on the beads
Mhm.
because of the light. Well, I
Right.
love how they appear, even if they are just reflections on the beads, I love the effect that they create. And I imagine that no matter what light you see this piece in, these little dots of white, little dots of white reflection are going to be there, right? Almost any
Yes,
light.
yeah, they change depending on where you're standing in the room, but there are always a lot of refractions of light.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, when we do shows outdoors, we typically take the tents off so that the sunlight reflects on the glass because sunlight is glass's best friend, and so we want to take advantage of that
So
and
you take the
highlight.
lid off your canopy, your
We
tent.
actually take the whole tent off. We slide the tents off during the day, and at night we put them back on so that we can secure it.
Okay.
But we have wheels on our tent legs, and we slide them right
Oh,
off during the day and close
got
them
it.
up and put them away. And
Okay.
yep, call
That's a
it going
great That's
naked.
a great
We go
strategy.
topless.
That's wonderful. It's a great strategy. Absolutely. And this piece is called Frosted Dahlia. What about this piece? Now, here are the specks of white also reflections.
No, on this one, most of the specks of white on this are actually supposed to be frost on a dahlia. This was a commission piece that I did for a lady that does my marketing for me. And she sent me this picture and said, I want this frosted dahlia. And I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to get all of this ice, these little ice chips, or they're just minute frost on the edge of this flower, kind of a one-time shot. And I love the way it came out. I was able Purple is not a color that I get to use very often because it's not a kind of a nature color. So I really enjoyed picking up all the different purple hues, and then creating that frost effect was a new challenge for me, something I had never done. And I really, really enjoyed that. And it led to other types of pieces that have not just the frost, but also kind of the wave splash and some different effects to them as well. So it was a really good kind of experimental piece for me.
Absolutely beautiful. Are the black beads here, are they black or are they just darker shades of purple?
They're actually darker shades of purple. So I used about 9 different shades of purple on this, different bead types and styles, from the opaques to the transparent and completely translucent rainbow ones. And this piece is 24 by 24, so it's a nice size
So
piece
two
as
feet by
well.
2 feet. That's a lot
Yeah.
when you're having to fill the entire surface with bead
Yeah.
mosaic. It's a beautiful piece. I mean, it's got so much richness and depth. I just love this piece too. And I wanted to look at them side by side. So we can see that, with the frosted dahlia, you're approaching the piece kind of from an oblique angle, which is very effective. And with the hibiscus, you're approaching it kind of almost from a bird's eye view. Is
Yes.
that and two completely different angles, but each so effective. And this emphasis on little dots of light, whether they're reflections or whether they're little, crystals, ice crystals or whatever, just so beautifully done.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I love this piece too, Tulip Pop. How did this come about? Are the white bits here, are these reflections?
Those are also reflections. Yeah, this piece I did in the dead of winter when it was cold out and I was wanting spring. So I love tulips. I mean, they're just fun flowers, and I love being able to play with the transition of color from the pink to the yellow and working that with beads and different types of beads. So I really try to emphasize the bead's personality in my work and allow that personality to react to the personality of other beads that they're with. So there's many multiple shades of pink, and also yellows in here. And the background, I went with the solid black, but I also interjected the iris, like black iris colors, which are kind of a magnet, metallic color, and just to give it that extra little sparkle and pop, which is what's reflecting the light on here. So it's actually an opaque black background with the hex color iris seed bead with it for the reflective value.
Yeah, just beautiful. I love how you sign your pieces too, because these are
Yeah.
works of fine art and you're taking them seriously and you're inviting the viewer to take them seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, I like, I love that, I've worked hard to really kind of bring beads into the fine art world and for them to see them as a valid medium. Beads so often in the past have always just been jewelry. And and there are a lot of artists who do sculptural work with beads, but there aren't very many 2D artists
Mhm.
that work with beads. And so I really, to be able to get people to see it and kind of validate it, I really needed to get into the kind of the higher end fine art industry. And I love that they've been so accepting of it.
Yeah, for good reason, because I mean, your pieces are so well done and they're beautiful. And I just
Thank you.
wanted to include a detail of this piece, so we could get a sense of the different positions of the beads. As you said, they're kind you let them assume random positions. Because
Hmm.
I think they create more interesting textures when they're at different angles. And some have their holes facing up to the viewer, and some have their holes facing away from the viewer. And I love also how you're even any detail of one of your pieces I have noticed could be presented as a successful work of art in its own right. This is just a detail, but it works extremely well as a complete piece.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautifully done. Now, what are the edges of the petals made of?
So the edges are a product we call Art Edge, and it's something that I discovered early on. So when I started working with the beads, my original goal and intention was to create something that looked like stained glass. And I didn't have the money or the space at the time to invest in a new hobby. But I had a bunch of leftover beads and some wire. And I thought, well, these are glass, and maybe I can mimic a stained glass look by gluing these down on a board. And it wasn't as simple as logic said it should be, which I think is the start of any artist journey. And there were a lot of years of discovery, but the wire was one of the worst challenges, that it did not work the way I wanted it to as a stained glass leading replacement. And so I had to find something else. And I eventually am able to find what we now call Art Edge, but is it's EVA foam, and they use it a lot in Hollywood for costume design. It's a very pliable, paintable material. And so when you cut it into really thin lines, you can get it in multiple colors, but then also when it's black, it looks like stained glass, but it's much easier to work with. And it's also, if you get a 2 millimeter thickness, it's the same size as a size 11 bead. So it works really well, and they blend in with the beads as well.
Yeah, just really beautifully done. I'm noticing also that the way you've lined up the bugle beads in parallel rows, right? And that's a beautiful contrast with the randomness of the other, the seed beads, the two different textures, completely different textures, complementing each other. Just so beautifully done here.
Thank you.
Oh, I love this piece too. Look, poppies. And there's a story behind this, right?
So yes, there is. So look with the exclamation point. My favorite flower is the poppies. And I grew up with them growing up in the West, but when I went to live on the East Coast, we never saw them. They're not an East Coast flower. But when I would see some, if we were traveling or something, I always like scream out, poppies. And it drives my husband crazy because usually he's driving the car, or we were on a motorcycle ride or something, and he's like, what do I have to stop and look at? And because it was such a joy to me to see poppies. They make me happy. They're always smiling. They're just such an incredible flower. So yeah, that's the name of the piece. And yeah, poppies are my favorite. I love them any way that I can represent them, especially the California poppies, the orange and yellow ones are my favorites.
Yeah, beautifully done. And here's another one, another look poppies. So you do these pieces in series, you make multiples, and you explore different aspects each time of the topic.
Yes. Yes, I enjoy like you said, exploring different ways to do it because typically I'll start a piece and in my mind I'll be like, "Oh, I want to do this, but what if I did that?" And I don't necessarily want to change that one because I want to see how it would have come out. So I'll start another one right away and then kind of make that change on it. And sometimes it leads to a third one. And so I think it's kind of fun to sit back and look at the series and say, all right, I liked that, or maybe I'll change that next time. And then I kind of get it all out of my system too. So it's not nagging it. Well, what if I would have done that? And then can move on to the next the next thing.
Okay. And these boards that it looks like a board here. I think you mentioned at one point that these are recycled. You're using recycled wood.
So most of my work is made on some sort of repurposed material. I started out doing that as a way to save money because framing is so expensive. And so I began using old cabinet doors that I would find in like a Habitat for Humanity restore. And I realized very quickly what an incredible thing they were. I mean, they were affordable, but they're also so well built. And, they're usually solid wood. And with my traveling, I'm setting up shows and a lot of this art is going to multiple shows. They hold up so well, so much better than the frames and there are pieces that I do pay to get professionally framed. But I really enjoy bringing something that would have ended up in a landfill, giving it new life. I'll use serving trays or really anything that's solid. I don't want any kind of movement or flex in the base, so I have to make sure that it's a solid something, and that can be glass or plastic or wood, MDF, but anything that I can do that kind of adds to the uniqueness of the piece and that makes it that much more one of a kind. Those cabinet doors and things tend to do that.
Okay. And now we're going to look at some trees. And you have many tree pieces. It was hard to choose the ones that we're going to see here, but I felt that these were representative of your approach to trees in general. So here's a piece called Enchanted Winter. Tell me about this piece. How large is it?
This particular one is about 12 by 18. And Enchanted Winter kind of came about from a trip to Alaska that we took. And we went up to visit my son when he was stationed up there, and it was October, so it was dark a lot of the time. And we were taking trips in the middle of the night to try to catch the aurora borealis, which we didn't. But when you're driving through their birch forests at night with the headlights of your car lighting that up and there's no other lights around you, it was really just it just really draws you in, the reflection of the snow, and it meets this really dark sky, but then you've got the light of the blue kind of behind it. And also during the day, cardinals are always a symbol of hope, and people, the winter will end. It's going to end and we're going to move forward. So the red cardinal was just that spot of color that you kind of need, that little spot of hope.
Beautifully, beautifully done.
Thank you.
And here's a detail. Now the cardinal, is the cardinal painted?
So it is a charm. It is a metal charm, a pewter charm, and I painted it with stained glass paint to make the red for the bird. Yeah.
And how did you make the birch trees? Are those beaded?
No, the birch trees are made out of the Art Edge product that I use for the edging. It's the same product. It comes in sheets, big sheets, and I cut them apart and I hand paint each tree individually so that they look like the aspens or birches. or regular trees, whatever I need them to look like, I can cut them apart and hand paint them to do that. The interesting thing about that is that because they're solid against the kind of pixelation of the beads, it really gives it a 3D effect especially
Yes.
looking at it from far away.
Yes, 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 you're right. Yes, absolutely. And the beautiful long silver bugle beads look like snow. Did you mean them to look like snow?
Yes, yes. So those are supposed to look kind of like the crystal snowflakes that stick to the little bitty branches that we have, hanging off the trees in the winter. They kind of ice over. And when you see my winter pieces in sunlight, they sparkle like they're actively snowing.
Wow.
I usually use a lot of crystal beads and the hex cuts, so they pick up on the light, and people will walk by and they say it looks like it's snowing in that picture
Wow.
because the light's changing so much and it's shimmering with the sunlight and depending on the direction you are. So it's kind of an active piece, which is fun.
Mm. Oh, excellent. And here, this is so subtle with the only the black and white tones. And it's kind of sort of monochrome here. How did you get the idea to use just black and white?
Well, this was inspired from a picture that I took one day when we drove up to the lake after a winter storm. And the top of the mountain, I was up at probably 8,000 feet, and the fog kind of hadn't cleared away yet. And so that you could really see the branches and you could kind of see the snow on the trees, but it was still foggy. So it was just kind of, the air was a little heavy. And my husband was driving and I was just snapping pictures like crazy out the window. And I said, I don't know what this is going to be, but it's going to be one of these. And so that was what inspired Solace was that.
Very beautiful, very atmospheric piece. Did you start making this piece by outlining the tree trunks and the branches?
No, actually, when I create my tree pieces, I do them freehand. I find that the less planning I do, the more natural they look. And so my tree pieces are actually my most um, freeing or kind of loose pieces that I do because I don't have to do as much planning. When I do the others, like the poppies, I have to outline and draw those out specifically. You'll see when I do animals later on, those have to be planned very specifically. But the trees are kind of, they're a lot of fun for me to make because they are so liberal and I just go with what's in my gut and I just start cutting trees and I start laying things out and seeing how they come out. And the more random, the better.
Okay, very organic approach.
Yes.
And here's another one in the same series, the Solace series, but completely different. And I love the reflections of the trees in the water.
Yeah, this one, I've done several water pieces and I love the reflection. So I kind of wanted to combine the two and do this in front of a lake. And so I I actually paint, I have to do the top first because I have to paint that before I put the crystal beads over the water. So the reflection is actually a painting underneath the beads that give it that look. And
Oh, I see.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful.
And then
Okay.
when I do the water, it's kind of hard to tell from here, but I intermix straight beads with twisted bugle beads. And the twisted ones give it the ripple in the water effect. So when you see it up close, you actually see ripples in the water. Um, and those are those twisted bugle beads.
Okay. So you're painting underneath the beading. What kind of paint is it? Is it oil paint?
It's acrylic.
Okay.
Mhm.
Just beautifully done. And here, another winter themed piece with trees called Whispering Woods.
Yeah, this was an interesting one. Um, I don't remember exactly what inspired this. I think it was another trip to Tahoe. We like to just go take a drive around the lake or go to dinner up by the lake or something. And but where we are, the mountains are always in the distance. Nevada is all mountains. Most people don't realize that our whole state is covered in mountains, and it's not flat desert here. And so there's always mountains in the back somewhere. And I just kind of wanted to tone down the colors a little bit as well because I'm known for doing a lot of vibrant pieces. And so this having kind of a softer quality to it was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, very soft. Is this dawn in your mind, or is this,
Yes,
dusk, dawn?
it's more dawn than dusk. I do spend from my backyard, I have an east and west view. We face south and we're above in a valley, so I can watch the sun rise and set. And I do watch it rise a lot. I tend to wake up early in the morning just to get up and work, and my studio looks out. So yeah, I love watching that orange glow, and it kind of wakes everything up, slowly. And I've done pieces with the pink mountains behind them, and having the snow. I think the snow makes for such incredible sunrises and sunsets because it reflects the colors of that. So
Beautiful. And here it looks like, is this also a winter scene?
yes, this is called Tahoe Crisp, and I have another series that's called Winter Crisp, and it's intended to be a happy winter scene, a fun one. So Solace is kind of more the well, let's stay inside and grab a cup of coffee and not go out. But this is the let's grab our sled and go have some fun today because the sun's shining and we are going to enjoy ourselves. Now, this is the Lake Tahoe version of my winter crisp. So you're not going to go jumping in the lake because the water's cold even in the middle of the summer, but it is inviting and it makes you want to kind of get out of your hidey hole and go out and see what you can see and experience.
And the sun looks like it has a mother of pearl disc in the middle. Is that right?
Yes, it is. That is a mother of pearl disc. Yeah.
A beautiful touch.
Thank you.
And here's a detail of the
Mhm.
different kinds of beads. You've got the seed beads, the bugle beads, this edging, artist edging material, and the mother of pearl disc. Beautiful. And this detail works just fine as an independent, completely freestanding work of art.
Yeah. Thank
I
you.
think it's actually amazing. And one of my most favorite pieces called the hammock view. How did this come about?
So I love to hike, and there's always that spot where you stop and you just look up, and especially with aspen trees, I tend to find myself doing that. And in the winter, you can't really hang a hammock. So I do this piece in several variations of seasons. I've done fall and I've done summer and I've even done this piece with all four seasons in the same piece. And so the hammock view is applicable to most of the seasons. I probably should have called this one the snow angel view. But it's just that little pause that you'll take when you're out and you look up and the sun's right above you and everything is still and you have and it's frozen. When you go snowshoeing or hiking up in the mountains, there's that peace and that quiet. And you kind of get that. You look up and you realize I am as small as a snowflake in this whole thing. This is everything is so much bigger than I am. And I grew up playing on a trampoline. That was my greatest toy. And I spent hours and hours at a time just laying on the trampoline looking up. And I was looking at trees or I was looking at the clouds but this view, it was an integral part of my life growing up.
Yeah, just beautiful. I love how you chose to place the sun not in the center, but off center,
Hmm.
leaving a greater expanse of blue. It's just so inviting and it's so much more realistic too, because the sun wouldn't be exactly in the middle of all the trees. It would be off to one side, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And did I get
think,
this? I think we
I
went
think,
backwards. Sorry
yeah, I
about
was gonna
that.
say, I think you went backwards.
Oops. Hey, it
There we
happens.
go.
And here's a piece called I Stand Alone. This looks like spring or summer.
Yeah, this piece was fun. And the I stand alone is kind of a play on words because aspen trees are a single organism. So a grove of aspen trees is actually one organism in itself. And so in this one, I was kind of a play on words with, this tree stands alone, but look at who's with it. Like it's a never ending sea of forest, but yet one can seem alone, but yet you're not alone. You're part of a whole. And so this particular one, I did it. This is the original I Stand Alone, and I did it as a spring to summer kind of transition piece. And I have since done multiple sets as commissions for people of all four seasons. And each one has the same trees in the same location, but in all four season settings.
Okay. And it almost looks like the eyes. I don't know what else to call them. The black areas on the aspen trees on the bark, they look like eyes. Did
Yeah.
you make them as eyes?
Yes, yes, they are. People do call them the eyes of the aspens, or the eyes of the quakies. A lot of people call aspens quakies because they quake when the wind blows, the sound that the leaves make. But when a branch is broken off, when it heals itself, the tree will heal itself. It looks like an eye, and it almost has an eyebrow above it because there's kind of a bump over the top of it and it reflects the light differently than the rest of the tree. So it's almost like an eyebrow kind of scenario.
Yeah, they feel very alive. And here's a piece, tall, narrow piece that it doesn't seem like you work in this format too often, but yet so effective because you must have come across this tree that was leaning at one point in time, right?
Yeah, this was a unique piece and something I don't do as often, although I would like to do it again, um, because I had so much fun with the pine needles on this one. Now, each one of those pine needles had to be done one at a time, and you can't see it in the pictures, but the color actually transitions from dark green pine needles at the bottom to lighter green as you go up the tree because of new growth. So those pine needles are always lighter in color and different lengths and things like that. So, we have really incredible winds where we are. And 40, 50 mile an hour winds are a norm here in Nevada. So a lot of our trees are kind of skewed. They've been pushed this way so often that they just kind of keep going. So, but this particular tree is more Canadian inspired, as far as the type of pine tree that it is. And but yeah, and I just kind of I couldn't think of anything other than the just leaning. Like I'm just leaning here, I'm by myself. I'm just leaning a little bit.
Well, it looks alive. It looks like a being, with growing limbs. It looks alive to me.
Thank you.
And you've
This was a
captured,
really a personal favorite. This one.
yeah, for good reason. I think it's amazing. And
Thank
here's
you.
here's one you called Todd's trunks. And again, are these are the aspen trees with the
Yes.
eyes on them?
Yes. And this was inspired. There's a photographer's name's Todd Powell, and he had took a picture of this really old grove of aspen trees in Colorado. And it's actually on private property, so most people don't get to see them. But it's one of the oldest old growth trees in the state. And I had a lot of fun being able to get as close to the trunks. His photograph was so detailed with the coloring, the shading, because he was so close to the tree trunks. And so I really wanted to do that. And I was able to, with painting the tree trunks, able to get those shades of color. You can see there's yellows and whites and silvers mixed in there, which is very reminiscent of real aspen trees are like that. And the bottoms are scarred up. They're, a lot of animals rub their bodies against the bottom of the aspen trees, and so they get scars on them. And they're all unique to the tree themselves. And then I think there's a future picture in here of the summer, Todd's trunk summer, and that's the same trees but much closer up and in a different season. So it was fun to again do a series of these in different seasons and also experiment with how close can I really get, how much detail can I really put into these aspen trees.
Yeah, until you mentioned that there were, there are yellow areas. There's yellow paint on some of the trunks here, different, variegations of color,
Mhm.
yellows and whites and grays. Until you mentioned that, I didn't really see that. But now that you mention it, it's such a beautiful extra touch, that lends them greater depth and detail and realism. Just fantastic. And here's a close-up detail. Showing all the different beads, I guess meant to depict autumn leaves on the ground. And then the dark, scratchy lines at the bottom of the trunks, as you said, representing damage to the tree trunk, animals rubbing up against the tree trunks. And here's Todd's trunks summer.
Yeah, so this one is a much larger version. The first picture that we saw was an 11 by 14 piece. This one is so that's 11 by 14. And then when we got to the summer one, this is like a 12 by 30. So I was really able to get close up on those aspen trunks. And I wanted to be able to create the aspens in beads and not have them get lost kind of with the rest of it. So being up as close as I was able to do that. And again, really focus on the shading and the scarring and using different types of beads to represent all of the details on it rather than paint. So using them like paint. But yeah, this was fun because I really got to play with that.
And here the eyes on the aspen's bark look more like flying birds, right? Because they're so close up that they look like they're in motion.
Yeah, and these are a little bit more kind of in the front, looking at them straight on. And so yeah, they have that they do kind of have a little bird-like quality. And that was also part of the challenge with the beads was getting bugle beads to bend is a little bit more challenging than doing it with a paint. I can have a little more freedom with that. So yeah, it's different. It was definitely different.
Okay, I myself, I think you were up to the challenge and then some.
Thank you.
Oh, and here's a detail. What the grayish are those are twisted bugles, the grayish or the dark, a steely gray color, twisted bugles?
Yes. So I mixed in the hematite twisted bugles with straight blacks. So there's different bugles depending on the hue of darkness that I wanted.
So different textures as a result. Yeah. And now we're going to look at some of your landscapes. Here's a piece called Mountain High. This is number 1 with balloons. Tell me about this piece.
So I attend an art show every year at the Balloon Fiesta in Albuquerque. It's called the Rio Grande Art Festival. And it's one of my absolute favorite shows of the year. It's a difficult show to get into, but it's so worth it because Balloon Fiesta is one of those events that everyone should experience at least once in their life. It's kind of a Disney World of ballooning. And so just the colors and the smiles that come with it when people see a hot air balloon. It doesn't matter where you are, you don't have to be in Albuquerque, but anywhere. And we actually have quite a few hot air balloons that come that rise behind us that, looking toward Lake Tahoe. And so I really wanted to do a series where I could celebrate that, but also doing it with beads. And I was struggling with it a little bit, and then I realized that if I turn a teardrop shaped bead upside down, it becomes a hot air balloon. And now I see hot air balloons all over the place in the bead world. And they're so fun because there's so many shapes and styles, and I use a lot of natural stones with it. So, I get to play with the Mountain High series. I get a lot of play in the colors of the sky,
Mm.
and then I get to play with all of these wonderful beads that I find in these teardrop shapes, and kind of make the little basket. And then I get to throw my mountains in there too. So
Mm.
it's there are fun pieces no matter what size or shape I do with those.
Yeah, and you've really captured, I think, the feeling of floating. Like my cousin Peter Cuneo is a licensed balloon pilot, and he and his wife live in Albuquerque, and they took me up once in their balloon. One of the
How wonderful.
5 or 6 times I've been ballooning in my life. And yeah, this is exactly what it feels like to float above the landscape in a very peaceful way and look at all the different colors and, just to be present to the world, to the landscape in this way, is amazing. And
Hmm.
you've really captured it here.
Thank you.
I love
Thanks.
how you've outlined the mountains with lines of seed beads.
Hmm. Yeah, I wanted to give them definition, but I didn't want it to be color. So
Mhm.
I do use I do line up beads sometimes when there's a reason for it, and use that to an advantage, and
Yeah, yeah,
outlining that is a fun way to do it.
yeah. Well done here, beautifully
Thank
done. And here's another mountain high version with where the balloons are reflecting in the water, it
you.
seems.
Yeah.
And is this in the
Yeah.
same area, Albuquerque?
Yes. So this is kind of a reflection on the Rio Grande, which they're always flying their balloons over there. So and this is kind of the sunrise. They always do the glow up, and then right when the sun's rising, everybody's taking their balloons up, and but sometimes it's so bright you kind of can't see the color of the balloons. So I intentionally did them more shadowy, and reflected all of those colors and life in the water. I wanted that to really come through that,
It's so, so subtle, so lovely.
thank you.
And here's a landscape, I would call this a landscape you've called Tahoe Sunset.
Yeah, yeah. So this was inspired by one night I went to Kings Beach to watch the sunset, and it was winter. It was a cold winter night, but the beach was packed with people, and Lake Tahoe. And one of the things I love about living out here is the colors in the sky at night, or sunset, or even sunrise. We just get such incredibly intense colors in the sky. And so, the water was cold, the air was cold, but the sky was just on fire. And
Mhm.
I don't know how many pictures I took that evening. It was a lot of them. But this was fun because I got to also um, use some bigger natural stones to represent the rocks, because Lake Tahoe is surrounded by boulders. It's all rocks in around the lake. So I was able to incorporate some of those in with what we call a beach over here. It's a little, loose definition of beaches, but we will take it.
No, I love it. And are those bits of obsidian, it looks like?
Yes. Hmm.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, really draws attention to the foreground, and contrast, as you said, with the size of the beads. There's moonlight over Minden. As I mentioned, you live in Minden, Nevada. And so this is like your home territory. And I
Yes.
absolutely love how you've captured the shoreline, it seems to me, by incorporating yellowish beads. Am I getting that right?
Well, so I live the lake is actually on the other side of the mountain from me. So it's a 30-minute drive, but we just go over the mountain on the other side. So this is the view from my back deck.
Okay.
And the gold and silver beads that you're seeing are actually what most people would consider city lights. We don't really, we live in a small town. So they're just house lights basically, all at the base of the mountain. And I woke up, I don't know, it was at 2 o'clock in the morning kind of thing. And the moon was just glowing and it lit up the entire mountain range. So these mountains are accurate to my area. And when you look on the right-hand side, you see some lights on top of the mountains, kind of
Mhm.
toward the end of the piece. That's Heavenly Ski Area. Those are the condos and on the mountain at Heavenly. And we're only 20 minutes from Heavenly. So I can actually be parking my car to ski in 20 minutes. And that's where the ski area is, and that's where we drive over the mountain to get to the lake. So
That's
um,
fantastic. And
yeah,
another
this is
mother of pearl disc to represent the
uh-huh.
moon.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Beautiful.
because it really was just huge that way, and it lit up the whole sky. It was like it wasn't even nighttime.
What time of year was this, just out of curiosity?
This was fall, I believe.
Okay. Maybe like a harvest moon then?
Yeah.
And here's a piece you call Mountain Mist.
hmm So this was inspired by the valley that you just saw that Minden is in the valley. Well, we're a little bit above the valley on the western side of the valley, and we had a week about 2 years ago in the winter where the entire valley was just covered in fog, frozen fog, and we were above it, so we had clear blue skies and it was beautiful. But then we looked down and it was just white. You couldn't see anything. And so this piece was inspired by that. And then I threw the lake in because I wanted to make it a little more interesting and we're close to the lake and kind of have that reflection on it. But it was really was inspired by just looking down at that fog and being able to see that, and knowing that there was a whole world of people in there that didn't realize how beautiful a day it was because they were stuck in the fog. Um, but I love the way this piece came out. This was another one that I did. I did this one and then I did a larger version of this right afterwards because I was so pleased with the way it came out.
Yeah, this is beautiful. And we see here, a word we haven't used, which is very relevant here, it seems to me, is pointillism or
Mhm.
pointillist approach, because you got these little tiny dots of color that you're layering on top of one another and, mixing or letting them mix on their own or mixing them, by your
Mhm.
on your own intentionally. And I almost feel like I'm seeing a photographic print here, where the
Yeah.
resolution it's an old fashioned resolution. So it's not real high
Mhm.
res, but it feels like something that could have come out of a scrapbook, an old time scrapbook. And I love how you've placed the bugle beads here for the water horizontally, and it's almost like the water is glistening and rippling at the same
Mhm.
time. And the water is reflecting the clouds, is that right?
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
the fog, or the fog.
It's both actually, which is why the reflection goes from a white to a blue,
Okay.
uh, because we are seeing the fog that's in the valley is a little bit of it, more that it's the lower part, kind of where the water tucks into the ground, is kind of probably still foggy, and then that blue sky is trying to come out. It's coming out, but this one was fun because I was able to use, I think. The fog, I use like a size 18 opaque white, and I kind of had to layer it on top. So this was an experimental piece again, because how do I get that look um, with the beads and getting its having them be so fine, because most of the rest of the beads are size 11 and then the bugles are um, anywhere from 3 to 5 millimeter bugles, but getting that fog in there, it took me several tries, but I finally, I think, captured it with those size 18s. And you're right, it is like pointillism. A lot of my work is very much like pointillism. That it's a pixelated drawing. It's just pixelated with beads instead of ink.
Yeah, yeah, good point. And here's a detail here. So the size 18 beads that you're mentioning, are they where exactly are they here? Are they on top of the mountain or in the
So
green?
they're the part that looks like the fog. They're the white
Oh,
part,
okay,
and they're
okay.
actually sprinkled on the green area as well. But
And
they're kind of that deeper white that you're seeing on the lower part of the mountain.
okay, I get it. Beautifully done. Love. Fabulous. And now we're going to look at some of the animals you've rendered, which are equally amazing. Here's a piece called Cheryl's Commission. What about this piece?
So this was a request. A girlfriend of mine, her name is Cheryl. She's a jewelry designer. Requested this piece from me. She loves giraffes, and I had done a giraffe piece similar to this, not the same, but similar years ago. And she said, I want one like that, and I was like, well, I can't make that one. And she said, I don't care, just mother and daughter, baby, mama and baby giraffe, and gave me free reign on it. So I had a lot of fun with this. The background, I used handmade paper on here, and I was trying to have something that was somewhat textural, but not distracting from the beads themselves or competing with it. I try to get the background not to compete. So I decided on the handmade paper, and I think it was a good choice. And I used seed beads, bugle beads, hex cuts. This one's kind of a mixture of them, of the styles. And yeah, it's a fun. Commissions are fun because they tend to push me to
Mhm.
to go out of my zone and just think about, and I, in a way, I guess, because I know the piece is sold, I don't have to worry about, well, is somebody gonna like it or not. It's
Yeah.
so I'll try things on with commissions sometimes.
No, that's an important point. If you know that you need a piece to sell ultimately, then you're going to do it in a certain way. Whereas if you know it's already sold, you can take a few more liberties. Also, your
Hmm.
friend asked you to do it, so you knew automatically she would love it. And it's
Yeah,
just such an effective piece, and you can feel the care between the mother giraffe and the baby giraffe here.
thank
Um,
you.
it just really comes across, and the difference in the generations.
Yeah.
And I do think that you've got the perfect background for this piece. It's not too distracting, and yet it's interesting. It's kind of alive. It could be read as
Yeah.
clouds, or a sky.
The backgrounds are tough because so many times I don't want to think about the background until I'm done with the piece, which would make it easier to think about it. But then trying to work it around an existing bead piece is very difficult, especially if I'm going to use cut paper. So, that kind of forces me to think more about it. But then I also have to work differently because, with handmade paper, I don't want the oils from my hands or my arms changing the paper or doing anything to it. So I have to cover that part up while I work on the beaded part. And that makes it a little bit more challenging as well.
And in the moment, a piece I love, and it looks like this background is not fully beaded. Is this paper too?
No, this piece, the background is a gel medium, and I was going for a really foggy, kind of choppy look. Again, I don't want to distract from the fox being in the moment. But I also needed a way to adhere the snowflakes that were falling, and to capture that sense of there's other stuff behind him, but we don't have to worry about that. It's there. We all know it, but the focus is this. This guy is enjoying the snow. He's in the moment 100%, and everything else is just a blur around him. But it's still snowing, and we still have that.
Yeah, we certainly have a sense of a a snowstorm in progress. Might not be a severe one, but it's definitely pretty coming down pretty densely. And that's why he or she has this peaceful look on
Hmm.
his or her face, you know. And here's a detail of where you've just scattered the beads on the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah, I was able to use several different types of beads for that. I did some pearl flat blacks on there for maybe some of the bigger, fluffier ones that were closer up, and then I used some uh, hex cuts and silver lines in the back, and I really just did a variety, and I did them very randomly. You know,
Mm.
snow is not a patterned thing. So, and that's where a lot of my looser technique comes in when it comes to kind of the nature of nature is that it's there's no patterns in there. So, even though at the base of it there are, but you know, when the randomness of snow falling is something that, or a splash in the water or something that I've worked hard at trying to do that accurately as much as possible with the beads.
Yeah, and I think you do. I love the touches of snow on his nose and on his forehead, you know, on his face, on his ears.
Thank you. Yeah, he's a favorite piece. I wish he hadn't sold so quickly. He was one that the first show I put him out, he was gone, and it has made me sad too. It makes me
Well,
happy, but it makes me sad because some of them I just want to enjoy a little bit longer. Didn't get to do that with him.
yeah, people know when a piece is special, it's going to sell right away. It is hard to
Yeah,
let go sometimes. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Here's one called Queenie, and I wasn't sure if the background here is not part of the piece, right?
No, no, this was a commission piece, which hence the name Queenie. The lady that commissioned it got to ride an elephant named Queenie when she was a child, and so they had commissioned me to create this piece, and they asked me to name her Queenie. So this piece did not get framed by me. It actually didn't get framed until it got shipped to the owner, which I do a lot of times because I find the frames tend to get damaged in shipping more than anything else. So they'll usually frame them. So this was kind of in front of my outside studio. And it's a large piece. This is a, what is it, 24 by 48, I think. So it's a pretty large piece. The same type of background that I did with the fox is what I did on this one as well, with the gel medium, just single color. This one I didn't put any kind of texture into it. I mean, a little bit of the medium texture, but I didn't add any kind of thing to it because, again, I don't want to distract from the texture of the beads, which was what was so dominant on this elephant.
Okay, and did you receive a photo of Queenie the elephant?
I did not. No. I had done a prior piece, an elephant named Rosie, and they saw Rosie at a show. She was smaller. She was about 18 by 36, I think. And they said, well, we would like our own elephant, but we need it larger because the space they had was larger. And you can do whatever you want. So I did
Mm.
the same type of technique with the just kind of sticking with the grays, and some of the elements were the same, but the elephants are very different.
Just so beautiful. And to think that this piece is 4 feet tall, that's really pretty tall.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I
this
love
was
that it looks like there are green toned beads in here mixed in with the grays and the blacks and the blues. And it's just a
those
very
are,
harmonious color combination.
thank you, those are like an iridescent color.
Okay.
um so they reflect differently. You know, it's kind of a white iridescent. um Sorry about the dog coming in, but
That's all right.
they reflect differently off of, you know, different colors. So, excuse me.
And I'm going to guess that the people who commissioned this were very happy when they received it.
Yes, yes, they were. And I saw them recently at a show in Washington. They live in Washington, D.C. Excuse me. I need to get the dog out of here.
Yeah, it's okay. It's all right. I
She's being
understand.
very rude. This is
That's what they do. I know.
this is the swimmer. And
Aw,
she,
the black
come on,
lab.
come on. I know you miss me, but go on, go on, go on, go on, come on, come on. you stay out this time. Don't open the door. It's rude. Okay.
Maybe a little bit of just a little bit of jealousy there that the elephant is getting so much attention, you know.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, so yeah, Queenie is I can't even remember where my train of thought was on that before she interrupted me. What was I?
All the different shades, the greenish
Oh,
beads are iridescent, I think you were saying.
yeah, yeah. So I used a lot of different shapes of beads on
Mm,
this. I used pippins for the legs, and I arranged them in the shape of flowers. And I used small flower beads for the ears. I had various shades of that. And then the trunk is a rectangular bead, and then a rice bead was used in the top. So the scale of the piece required me to go with larger scale beads
okay.
rather than using the seed beads, which is more normal for me. And then the grass is made almost all bugle beads, pretty
Okay.
much.
Okay. And then we had said that the collectors were very happy when they received this piece.
Yes, yes. So I saw them. They live in Washington, D.C., and I did a show there this summer. And they came by to say hi, and they said, "Oh, we love Queenie," and
Mhm.
so and I have that happen a lot. I have a lot of collectors. They'll come by and it is hard to remember them, but they'll say, "Oh, I have Gregory, and you know, I have this piece," and I know exactly who they are at that point
Mhm.
and which piece, and it's funny that I know. I may not know the names of the owners of all the pieces, but I can tell you what state they all live in.
Wow.
So
Wow.
every one of them, I can tell you where it was sold and where the piece lives.
Wow. That's amazing. And here's Jerry May.
Yes, this was a commission. The first elephant that I did, I had shown the piece to people, and a lady friend of ours came up and said, "Can you do a rhino for me?" Her last name is Rhinoski. And so she asked me to do one. And this is another large piece. This is a 24 by 36. Um, and again, this was all about capturing the texture
Mm,
and using those larger scale beads. And I did the trunk is done with dagger beads. I used dagger beads for that. And it was kind of a representational thing, you know, that they're always sought after for their trunks, and so I thought giving them a little dagger to poke back would be kind of good. But yeah, this was a lot of hematite, um, grays, different types of gray beads, and then the background I did in a white bugle bead. It was kind of an off-white iridescent bugle, just to give it texture, all random, but just not distracting again
okay.
from the piece. And I have a funny story about this piece. When I finished it, I took it off my table and I set it down on the floor, leaning against the door, just so I could take a look at it from far away and take a step back. And my dog went crazy. My dog Layla, she thought it was real. Like the hackles went up on the back of her back, and she started growling, and she went on defense mode in a big way. And I was like,
Wow. Yeah,
okay, she
how
has never
scary for
reacted
her.
that way.
Well, if it had been a rhino, very scary for her.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think because of the blacks and grays that it was the
Mm,
monochrome color that it seemed more realistic to her maybe. But
sure.
I've never seen her react that way to any piece. But this one, I put it down there and I mean, yeah, it was instant. It was pretty amazing.
There's an instinctual reaction. She's probably never seen a rhino in person, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah, yeah, no,
But
I don't
but
see
she
how
has
she
the
would.
instinct
Yes, she
to
does.
to be on alert, to be very careful.
Yeah, yeah. So this was named Jerry. The name Jerry May is the client's mother. She named
Okay,
after her mother.
lovely. And here's a detail. I just
Mhm.
love the amount of detail. Did you position each one of these beads individually, or
Yes.
were some of them on strings or what?
These were not strung at all. None of them were.
Okay.
It was strictly a one-on-one placement. Um, and with the dagger beads you can kind of tell because of the randomness. But yeah, the others I did place them individually.
Fantastic. And what is the eye made of?
The eye is a bead as well. It's just a larger black bead. The white part you're seeing is a reflection of the light on the eye.
Okay.
And then around it, I used ball chain. So the little black part that surrounds the actual eye itself is black ball chain.
Wow. Wonderful. And the outlines, like the shapes that outline the features, is that this artist edging?
Actually, on this one and the elephants, I did a reverse um scenario where I actually cut into the wood and painted it black rather
Oh,
than have a surface thing on it. I
okay.
dug into it. So
Okay.
they're very unique pieces because they took me a lot longer to do that. But the elephants and the rhino are the only ones I've ever done that with.
So
So an
you've
experiment.
incised the lines in effect. These are
Mhm.
incised
Yeah,
and
yeah,
painted.
yeah.
Beautiful. And here's Sir Winston.
This is one of my all-time favorite pieces.
Yeah, I
I
can see why. Yeah.
I just love him. He is just and I named him Sir Winston because I felt like if I put glasses on him, he would look like Winston Churchill.
Mm,
And he's just so majestic.
mm.
He's just dignified in his playing in his icy waters and his big tusks and he's just so serene. And this was an interesting piece because the his skin was made with vintage satin beads that I thought I was going to have enough of them for. And then
Oh,
when I got most of the way through, I ran out of the beads,
mm.
and so I went on a scramble trying to find these beads everywhere. I tried every supplier. I ended up getting some on Etsy in these little bitty quantities. Now, I'm typically buying by the pound because I use such quantity, and they're making me buy these little, 10-ounce baggies of beads. Um,
Right.
but I was desperate and I had to finish him. So I, did what I had to do. But they're wonderful beads, and you just
Mm.
can't find them anymore. They're satin.
What
Um,
what size bugles are they?
they're like a almost like a 2 millimeter bugle. Like they're really
Really?
short.
Oh, they're really
Um,
tiny then.
they are. They're a small bugle it's a satin. It's a gray satin. It's not a silver. It's a matte gray.
Right.
Um, And then I kind of intermixed some silver bugles with it to give it that texture, because all the
Okay.
pictures I looked at, they were very textural. And the whiskers are done with jewelry wire. So it was curved jewelry wire. You can see his whiskers that
Oh
the whiskers are
yeah.
some of the most prominent parts of him when you see him in person.
Okay.
Um, are those whiskers that are coming out of the beads and then kind of curling around onto him. And yeah, he's a fun guy. I love him. Sir
His
Winston.
tusks are kind of still dipped into the water, so
Hmm.
he's popping up out of the
Yes.
water. And part of the reason you love depicting animals and nature, scenes from nature, is that you're concerned about the condition of our environment. You're concerned about creatures like this and how they can endure, as global warming continues, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there's such an integral part of our balance
Mm.
and keeping everything in order and as it should be. And we're so blessed to be given the care of them. And unfortunately, we have abused that in so many ways. And so, yeah, I love that I can kind of capture a moment, one of their
Hmm.
moments,
Yeah.
and hopefully, make increase awareness and give you a close-up look. Like how often would you get a close-up look at a walrus like that? And
Never, never. And I love
yeah.
that the tusks to me look like they're aged because they're
Hmm.
somewhat yellowish and they're
Yes.
variegated. And to me, it looks like he's old, like he
Yeah,
has contains a lot of wisdom because he's lived so long and he's seen so much. All of that you
exactly.
capture by the coloration of the tusks.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was another reason for his name is the wisdom. He just looks like he knows what he's all about and what the world is, what's going on with this world. And
I agree. Yeah. His eyes do look a little bit weary, I have to say,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
like he's seen maybe a little bit too much.
Yeah.
And here's a detail.
Yeah. And here I used a lot of different shades of gray beads, different types of gray beads, um, in his face. Again, going to really, really tiny, from 11 to 15s, I think I did on here, um, just so that I could capture that texture. And then the wires for his whiskers that was a really important part because the whiskers are such a prominent part of of who they are and their life. And so I really wanted to make sure that those whiskers were done justice and they
And
were.
is that some kind of stainless steel wire? Like what's it called? The wire that memory wire? Is it memory
Yes,
wire?
it
It
is
is memory.
memory wire. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
I wouldn't have to worry about it bending out of shape if someone touched it or something. Yeah.
So it retains its curve.
Yep.
Beautiful.
But it's
Wonderful.
very hard to cut too. I remember
Oh yeah,
that.
memory wire is hard to cut.
It's
Wait a
hard to
second.
cut.
Am I
Oh,
going
you need to
forward
go.
here? I think
You're going to the end. You need to go back.
I wanted to go, but now I'm going into the birds. I wanted to go back to Sir Winston.
Oh, keep going, keep
Yeah, here
going,
he
keep
is.
going. There you
Okay.
go. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No.
yeah, that memory wire, I remember especially the little small pieces on up on his cheeks. That was really hard to cut. I had my
Mm,
wire clippers out and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this stuff is not fun." But
yeah.
it was worth it though.
Okay. Beautifully done.
Thank you.
Okay, now we turn to birds. Here's you call this piece Robin's Booby.
So my friends Robin and Pete went to the Galapagos Islands on vacation, and they came back just in love with the boobies, with the blue-footed boobies that they saw there, and and they said, "Could you do a booby for us?" And I was like, "All right, I'll make you a booby." So this is Robin's blue-footed booby, but blue-footed booby didn't sound good, so just Robin's booby, and she appreciated the name. She's got a good sense of humor. And this was a fun one because the personality of these birds is just so quirky, and you can't help but smile no matter what. It's just the not just the blue feet, but their personality is so there. So yeah, I had a really good time making this guy.
He has a sort of a whimsical look, or
Hmm.
it looks as if he's saying, are you serious? Or are you kidding me? Oh, you stupid human being. I'm sorry. I'm just projecting my own meanings onto this
Yeah.
poor creature.
Yes, and they're so expressive and they look so comic like they're just fake. And so I did the textured background again with this one with some color behind it this time so that you could kind of see that, yes, he's standing on like a beach or something and there's sky behind him, but that's not the focus here.
Mhm. No, beautifully done. And here are a couple of details.
Yeah, here you can really see the different types of beads that I used, seed beads for his face, and then the different types of bugle beads going anywhere from little micro clear ones up to longer ones, and they're used in different directions and different textures. And
Beautiful. And, actually, it looks as if the bugle beads are casting a shadow onto the
they are
background.
Yeah, on the one picture, the close-up face picture, they are casting a shadow, so you can see kind of how textural they really are. They do
Mhm.
stick up off of the canvas.
Very
And I took
three-dimensional.
Yes, yes. And I love allowing people to pet my bird pieces because it, you know, you can't ever pet a bird. That's one of those things you just really can't do. And so it's fun when you can pet these pieces because the way the feathers lay, they are like feathers, these bugle beads.
Mm.
If you go up in the wrong direction, they feel rough. If you go in the right direction, they feel smooth and like a bird would. So they're fun.
And so are the feet of these creatures really this blue?
Yes,
Wow.
they really are. Yeah. So I tried to get the feet as accurate as possible, and I actually had these dagger beads that were exactly the right color for his toes. Where
I
you
just noticed.
I couldn't believe it. I was like, these are perfect for his toes. And yeah, they are. They're that shade of blue.
Mm, amazing. And here's Mia and David.
So this is a commission for a wonderful couple clients of mine, and they bought my first piece from a gallery in Sedona, and she sent me a um, a thank you email and said, we bought our first real piece of art, and we got engaged in Sedona, and we went and bought our first piece of art together, and it was yours. And so she and I started a dialogue, and then when they got married in Sedona, and they bought their second piece of art, and it was one of mine as well from the same gallery. And then I did a show. They were in Arizona. I did a show, and they came to the show to meet me in person. And I gave them a piece as a wedding present, and then they had also bought another piece from me. So they're like, "So we're collectors." They were so excited. The nicest couple. And then David's birthday was coming up, and Mia called me and said, "I'd like to have you make something for him for his birthday." And I said, "Well, what do you want me to do?" She said, "Well, I think I want lovebirds because there's something that means a lot to us living in Arizona. There's a lot of lovebirds all over the place." She said, "Do whatever you want, but I think I want a pair of lovebirds." And so David has the black hair, and Mia's looking up at him, and it was fun. And I was so tickled when I was finished with it. I sent her a message. I said, "I hope you hate these because I want to keep them myself." And she was like, "No such luck, Sabrina." But it was fun, and the background was fun because I kind of went with the deliriously in love type of thing in my head, but I didn't want it to distract from them either. So I went very subtle with that, but I had a good time with the background.
Yeah, it's very clear that they're in love, that these are lovebirds. And it's just almost like there are bubbles in the background, magical
Yeah.
bubbles or something. Yeah, very
Hmm.
understated, but a lovely complement to the main subject matter, which is the lovebirds.
Yeah. Yeah. They're neat. I love them.
I love them too. Now here's Barney. What about Barney?
So Barney was a commission. I have another macaw similar to Barney. His name is Mojito, and he's more of a green macaw, kind of a greenish blue macaw. And I had him at a show, and this couple came up, and he said, "My brother-in-law has a macaw just like that. Could you make a picture of him?" And as a commission, and I was like, "Sure." So they sent me pictures of Barney, and he does look just like this. And it was funny because after I sent them the piece, they sent me a picture with Barney in the other room because they said they couldn't show him the piece because he thought it was real. So Barney's in the room next to it, and the piece is in the hallway right outside of him. So you can see the two right next to each other, and they do look identical. It's pretty uncanny.
So
So
Barney thinks this your work of art is real. It's a real bird.
he did. When they showed him the piece, he was really angry. And so they have to keep it out of his
Oh,
view so
that's
he
kind of
doesn't go
funny.
after it because he thought it was
Oh, he doesn't want competition or
yeah, they're very, very territorial birds. And
okay, okay.
yeah, so they have to, but they wanted to get me a picture with, so I could see both at the same time. And they did. I have a picture of the two of them together. But it was fun. The guy that commissioned it went to his brother-in-law's house and just took like 20 pictures of the bird in different positions and things. And then sent them to me and said, do whatever you want to do, but this way you have the coloring and all of the stuff right. And he was made on a repurposed cabinet door, a white background, just so that those colors would really pop through.
Well, it seems to me it's the highest possible form of flattery that the real bird thinks that this is a competitive bird that has to be eliminated.
Yeah, yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I mean that's the real thing. Can't fool a bird.
Yeah.
Here's Thurston.
Mhm. So this is he's a kingfisher. And this piece is actually quite large. I think it's like 14 by 28 or something like that. And if you've ever seen a kingfisher, they're tiny, tiny little birds. They're like the size of a hummingbird. And so I went larger than life on this one and really tried to capture all the detail and the subtle color differentials and things like that on the kingfishers because they're such beautiful, miraculous little birds, but they're so small that you can't ever kind of appreciate the details. So, um, and this one was also made on a repurposed cabinet door that happened to look like wood. It's a wood grain, gray wood grain, and I thought that that wouldn't compete with it, but it kind of puts them in the right setting.
Mm.
And then the thing that he's standing on is actually supposed to be like a moss. Um, and I used sequins for that because I wanted a completely different texture that I couldn't find with the beads. And so I used sequins mixed with beads to kind of give it that mossy lichen type of look to it.
But it looks whitish to me. I mean, I
Mhm.
see gray overtone or green, excuse me, green overtones, but it's like mostly white. So is there moss that's white?
Yes, there is, especially in the West, it's almost like a light sage colored whitey moss that's crisp, it's almost crunchy.
Okay.
So when you touch it, a lot of times it feels really dry. And when you see it from far away, it looks kind of white and a little, almost the color of my shirt, kind of type of color. So that's the type of moss that he's on because they're not usually found in tropical environments. They're more of a dry
Mm.
area. So
Yeah, the sequins make a very nice contrast and a nice touch. You know, he's beautiful. And by
mhm.
naming them, you're kind of turning them into individuals. He's not just a kingfisher bird, he is a distinct personality type of kingfisher bird, right?
Oh yeah. No, Thurston is Thurston Howell the third from Gilligan's Island. He thought he was the best of everything. And
True.
he was the kingfisher there. So
You're right.
that was who
Yes.
inspired this name.
I remember Gilligan's Island. Yes, I do. And here's a detail of the sequins and the bugle beads. Are there any seed beads in here? Oh, yeah, there are seed
Not
beads with the
on the
bugles.
bird itself, only on the beak. I used
Okay,
seed beads just on the beak, but the rest of
okay,
him is bugle beads. Yeah.
okay. And size 18 little white seed beads mixed in with the sequins.
Hmm.
Beautifully done. Lovely. And here's I think this is our last piece. This is Spark, your bald eagle. Tell me all about Spark.
So Spark is the third bald eagle I've done. And he is about 24 by 24. So he's a fairly large piece. And I I just think eagles are incredible. They're majestic, they're stoic, they're powerful, and um, so I've in all three of my eagles that I've done, I've really tried to kind of capture their expression and their majesty. And he's just a beautiful piece. And I used seed beads for his eye and his beak. The rest of it is all bugles, from 30 millimeter down to like a 2 millimeter Mako bugle, like super, super tiny, up in his face area. And yeah, he has won several awards, including the Fire Mountain, their jewelry making contest last year. They made up an award for him because they didn't have a category for bead mosaics. And so they that I entered him in a jewelry contest, but I did it as jewelry for your walls instead of your body. So they made up a category to give him an award. And he also was the one that got best of show at the Glass Expo. He won first place, best of show at the Indian Wells Fine Art Show in Palm Springs. And so yeah, he was for sale originally, but we've decided to keep him. And now he's in my home and kind of my mascot. I have a Bead Mosaic subscription club, that's called the Bead Brave, um, Bead Mosaic Club. And he is our mascot to Bead Brave, to step out of your comfort zone and do something incredible with beads. And he's a result of that.
Very fitting. You've really captured his intensity and piercing gaze, all-seeing gaze, all-knowing.
Yeah.
And here we have a detail. So the yellow, his beak, those are beads. It looks like you must have painted underneath the beads.
No, these are seed beads, and this is kind of a blurry picture. It's a little hard to
Okay.
see that, but you can normally see. This is one of the few times where I did work with beads on hanks, so that I
Uh-huh.
could get the lines on it. So when you see the clearer picture, you can see the individual lines of beads that are on there, which is what looks like the striping on there. So yeah, it's the eye and the beak are done with the seed beads. Everything else was bugles, and they were hand placed one at a time
Wow. And the
because they're
bugles are
layered on
perfect
top.
for capturing the feathers.
Yeah, they really are. Feathers and fur. I've done, bears and all different types of animals, and yeah, feathers and fur are the number one. The bugles just do it right.
Mhm.
I just finished today a long-haired, what's the Highland cow with the long shaggy hair, and I was able to use some really long 30 and 40 millimeter bugle beads, which are not the kind of things you get to do with normally, but boy, they turned out really well.
Mm. What a great discovery.
Yeah, yeah, I have fun with them, and they're the selection is not as great as far as coloring goes, like the seed beads are. They're just not as prevalent. But I've learned how to mix different bugle beads together to create different color hues. Because when you look at them from far away, they create a different color in your mind.
Yes.
So I do play with that a lot because the colors selections are limited.
Okay. And so how did you come to call him Spark?
Um, I kind of felt like when we got started back 1776 and they were trying to pick, like we sparked a revolution, and and he was our symbol of that. And he's always kind of the symbol behind us standing firm in America. And he'll spark that in anybody, that sense of patriotism.
In
And
Pride.
yeah, yeah.
He's fabulous.
Thank you.
And here, I just want to give people a sense of where they can find you going forward. You have one website for your art, and that's called sabrinafryart.com. And then you have your Bead Mosaic kit website and supply website, and that's called beadmosaic.com.
Yes.
And then on YouTube, you have some bead mosaic tutorials, and that's Sabrina Frey Fine Art. Is that correct?
Yes. So the Sabrina Frey Fine Art on YouTube has a lot of my pieces, and I show the process and how I create them.
Okay.
And then on YouTube, we also have Bead Mosaic, which is more the tutorials on how you can try to make things yourself and create your own work.
And Instagram, anything else?
Instagram is Sabrina Frey Art as well, and Facebook is Sabrina Frey Art.
Okay.
And then we have a Facebook group that is Bead Mosaic, and there are 25,000 people in the group now.
25,000 people?
Yeah, it's in 4 years. It's crazy that that it's grown so much, but there's so much interest in
Mm.
learning how to do this art form. And we had our first competition this year, and Fire Mountain donated like the first place winner got 35 pounds of beads from Fire Mountain.
Wow,
Um,
that's incredible.
yeah, it was an incredible prize. And Shipwreck donated a prize package. Garden of Beading donated. The Museum of Beadwork also participated, and they all had judges in the competition. And so we had 6 winners this year for that competition, and or 5 winners, I think it was. So that was really neat to see everybody's creativity come together and see what they're producing, and it's nice and fun knowing that I had a part in that I helped them at some point along the way. And so I love seeing that people are enjoying it and doing and beating brave, they're doing their own thing.
Well, you're the prime mover. I mean, you are the main facilitator, the main teacher. You're leading this movement, a whole movement.
Well, I love seeing freedom in beads, and there are definitely some pioneers and that helped me. Nancy Josephson and Jan Hilling are amazing artists, and I learned some really incredible things from them, and I love following their work, and but I love also passing it on and helping people find their own voice.
Mhm.
And that's why I taught for so long. Now I'm, instead of teaching them how to draw buildings and interiors, I'm teaching them how to create with beads.
Right. How to liberate their creativity,
Yeah.
how to express it. Well, it's just been wonderful talking with you, Sabrina. I want to thank you so much. And, I hope that in the future, maybe a year or two, three from now, we could meet again. We could get an update on what you've been doing with your work and your teaching, and we could just hear more about your life too.
Absolutely. I would love that. Thank you so much. Thank you for, your interest in my work, and for putting all this out there for all the bead artists that you highlighted and kind of putting us out there. I appreciate that for sure.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I've really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you. You too.